So right now we are experiencing KPA's fall from grace. So a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, if I'm not wrong, so KPA released their new additions to their roster. I know a lot of teams do a lot of things, especially when it comes to players in the off season, and they have to make changes to their roster, and it's necessary for them to make changes so that they can start the new season on a different way. It's not similar to last season, but they have to make some improvements. Sometimes they have to add, sometimes they have to subtract players. So it is what it is. That's how the game works. So KPA's fall from grace, I can say it's spectacular. And I'm going to take you back to 2019, where I believe KPA are at the height of their power. So 2019, that was the time KPA made it to the Road to Bal, the first ever inaugural Road to Bal. This is the first ever Road to Bal that was going to introduce teams into the Bal season one, the inaugural Bal season. So KPA won the title after a three-peat in 2018. So KPA was so dominant to the point where they won the championship for 3 straight years, fixing their repeat and notching a position to Road to Bal. So KPA at that time, they feel they're one of the strongest rosters I've ever seen. I mean, I don't think there's a roster in KPA's history that can get to where they were in terms of dominance, because if you look at those games closely where they played in the first ever Road to Bal, they were not even close games. Those games, they were brutal beatdowns for the teams in East Africa. And even in the teams that they matched up with, they were just blowouts. And unfortunately, the KP organization did not understand the magnitude in which BAL was going to be, even how big it was going to be and how it was going to be taken by the continent. And they failed to sponsor their trip to Rwanda. And they ended up losing that game to City Oilers through a walkover. They didn't play that game because they were late to play that game. So they got a walkover and it automatically knocked them out of the Elite 16, even despite them going ahead and winning all the games except that one through a walkover. So they got denied a chance because of KPA's mismanagement, and it was a very incompetent thing that KPA did, especially KPA being one of the organizations that has the most money and that can sponsor them. So since that failure that KPA had, they made sure to make up for it, because if you look closely, since that time, 2022, they sponsored both the men's and women's team so the men's team went to BAL and the women's team went to the Africa Champions Cup. Didn't matter if they won or lost, but they made sure to participate. But unfortunately, the BAL season 2, the road to BAL was actually quite brutal for KPA, because they won the first game and they lost 4 straight, and they're not even able to make it to the past the Elite 16 because they lost 3 straight. So that was that. And it was very embarrassing at that point, because the first time they played, they feel like the most dominant side, and the KPA management cut funding to enable them to go and participate. This time they had the funding, but they couldn't get to the level of competition, and it went downhill. Similar to the Africa Women's Cup, KPA got beat in the quarterfinals. That was 2022. 2023, it was sad. It was bad, because KPA didn't even make it past the first round. So that was very embarrassing for KPA. I felt like they were not ready for this that last edition of Road to BAL that happened last year. Not this one. This one they didn't even have a chance of making it. So in 2022, that's the time I covered them, and they went ahead and won the finals, and they beat Ulinzi in 5 games, and they went ahead to play in that edition of Road to BAL in 2022. 2023, they went ahead and lost in the first round. So I don't even know what I say. So I covered the 2022 one. They went ahead and they got knocked out in the Elite 16. They didn't win. 2023, they were not ready, and they clearly are not ready. They only won one game, and they got beat in 2 games. They got beat by Dynamo in the first game. They won against Elan Coton, and they lost to Pazi. Pazi didn't even make it. Dynamo only, it was the only team that KPA faced that made it. So that is the time that we experienced the downfall of KPA as an organization, because after those, setbacks, even when they came to the league, remember, that's the time the Thunder came in. So the Thunder made quick work of KPA in the Makande gym, and after the River City Thunder beat KPA like that, I saw a couple of changes. Coach Cliff joined, Eugene Adera left. A couple of players who were in that championship roster didn't look the same. And even with them, the KPA team clawing the way back to the finals in this year, 2024, they stood no chance against the Thunder, and they got swept. And even I made a video talking about this, and I said, this might be the last time you're seeing KPA on top, because even with the roster that they had, they still were not able to do anything. And now, fast forward to present day. So they won against Ulinzi this past weekend, and they got beat by the NBK Phoenix. So the thing is, I feel like the KPA's dominance is over, because they have signed so many players, which is not a bad thing. Teams have to retool. But the people that can get them championships are not present in the roster. They let their finals MVP walk. They let a couple of players who lifted the championship for KPA multiple times, they let them walk. So it's a full-on rebuild right now. It's a full-on rebuild for KPA. So even sometimes I even say, KPA is not different from a Div1 team. It's no disrespect to those players, but you can't compare the roster KPA has to the roster that the Thunder has. And I'm not even forgetting the Equity Dumas, because they are another fall from grace that I'm going to cover in our next video because that is funny. So both KPA franchises, KPA and Equity, we are witnessing their slow downfall and their free fall to irrelevancy. Even despite the fact that they had all these setbacks, they are still one of the most wealthiest / richest organizations that can put together a basketball team. But the lack of vision and the lack of adequate personnel that can be able to take them to that next level. And when I say personnel, let me talk about KPA, because KPA is the reason as to why even this video is being recorded. So the KPA organization made the decision to bring in Coach Cliff. I've gone in and said that Coach Cliff is not a winning coach. Even looking at his resume with KPA, at the time he took charge of the team at the second half of the season, as he finished off the season, he got swept in the finals by the Thunder. And if you even look at his Kenya Moran's tenure, you will see that this is not a coach that can win games for you. This is not a coach that you can trust. This is not a coach that can impact wins the way you expect. So I mentioned this a couple of times, and a lot of people, have some pushback when I say that. And it's not even coming from spite or anything. I'm just saying, if you look at the stats, if you look at the facts, you'll see that this is not a coach that can get you wins. This is not a coach that can, take that team to that next level. Because yes, a lot of people can say, you know what, he took that KPA squad to the finals, but what did he do in the finals? KPA got swept. I mean, for a coach that has coached the teams, the national team, you mean tell me that they have not learned, this man has not learned anything in terms of tactics? Because his tactics are the reason as to why KPA is where it is right now. And if you give him this roster, it's unfortunate, because you're going to see the same thing. A lot of L's are going to come. And this past season, there are so many warning shots. We saw KPA losing back-to-back in this year's past regular season, and they lost to USIU and Ulinzi. It was sad. I mean, you can see KPA got dominated by the Thunder at home, in both home and away. The games are not even close. The championship identity that KPA had built throughout the years, I can even say they built a dynasty, because they won a three-peat and they went back-to-back. But the last championship you're going to see KPA winning was last year, not this year. Last year in 2023, that's the time that they beat the Equity Dumas, who I'm gonna get to in a future video. But the thing is, KPA, with the addition of their players, they have automatically lost their championship identity. They have lost the ability to compete for a championship. They've lost their any signature of stardom that KPA had. Even the championship clout that they had built throughout the years is gone. So it is what it is. So I'm just here to just point out the facts and just point out the obvious, because man, you're not gonna get like objectivity when if you just go by the scores, because you could see they won that game against Ulinzi and they lost that game against MBK Phoenix. We're like, it's one on one. It's the first game of the season. But if you take out all that context that I've brought in, and if you just look at these things in face value, you might think that KPA is improving. But if you take everything into context and you look at this team from top to bottom and look at what they have done through the years, given that the data that we have, you will see that there's a slow regression when it comes to KPA. And this is a team that I've followed for months and years on end. And I've made multiple videos talking about them. Even I made a downfall video early 2023 saying that KPA, they've lost it. They lost the plot completely. And we are seeing the history being rewritten by the Thunder. And the Thunder coming out and, righting the wrongs that the previous teams had. Because you have seen the same mentality, the same Kenyan mentality, the same Kenyan rigid mentality of not understanding that you're not supposed to operate as an island. You have to figure out a way to source for players in the continent that we know of. Look at what the Thunder did. I can't stop mentioning the Thunder because it's just a direct reflection of the things that KPA couldn't do. Look at the Thunder. Even the time they made sure to win, when they won the KBF championship, they never slept because they are setting up their roster and retooling to make sure that they have the highest chance of getting back. They signed multiple players. They even after their success in the Elite 16, they added 2 players for good measure to make sure that they make it to BAL, of which they're going to make it. If you have Aterma Jok and Abdullahi Haruna, there's no way you're not going to make BAL. You're going to make BAL automatic because those are guys who have been there, done that. So KPA's road to BAL campaigns, if you remove the 2019 one and you have the 2022 and 2023, you'll see the difference in quality. You'll see the difference in even talent in the roster, that the people who they are bringing in, they're not those guys, man. So it's night and day. And KPA are just going to fall and regress to oblivion. This season is just going to be a rebuilding one. I will not even be shocked if they don't even make it past the first round, because I'll be like, you know what, this squad as it's built, they can't win in the finals. As long as the Thunder are there, they're not going to win anything. The Thunder are going to go beat them home in a way similar to what happened last season. And it's just going to be a rinse and repeat for the Thunder. There is no winning when it comes to KPA basketball. So I said, let me just, come out and just mention these things, because I felt like it was very important that we have this. And given that the data and the facts that we have right now, that's when the whole things, when you're able to know everything holistically and put things in perspective. So yeah, man, if you retrospectively look back at what has happened throughout the years, you'll understand the events that have led up to this present day. Because with the current roster construction that KPA have, I'm not sure if they can be able to make it. I'm not sure. They can prove me wrong, but hey, I mean, looking at the data that we have, as per the data we have in our logs, I mean, it's just going to be a very, 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 very tough. It's going to be a very tough season for them, because a team like the Ulinzi Warriors, they're not a team that you can even gauge them and say that they're on that top level. Okay, they are a top 4 team in KBF. Of course, they're going to be top 4, but beating them does not add so much value or credibility. Because if you look at even the Ulinzi Warriors, the last time they were relevant was in the 2022 KBF finals, where they got beat in 5 games. Since then, they have just been regressing. They lost in the I believe they got swept in the postseason, and it's just been sad, back to back sweeps. So it's something that it's quite the fall from grace for these teams, man. And the Thunder rising, it's just it's fascinating and it's laughable at the same time. So tell me what you think in the comment section down below, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one, man. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Get me to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube and 11,000. The next goal for Instagram is 50K. Let me get me first to 11,000, then we'll look at 50K followers. I'm loving the Facebook group community, Kenya Basketball. Not even Kenya Basketball, but the Basketball Africa League Forum. It's growing at a very high rate. We are at 64,000 members. So the goal is 100,000. I wanted it to be 100,000 before this year ends, but where we are right now is we have passed our expectations. Guy, we have surpassed our expectations, and I believe there's so much to see, especially when it comes to African basketball, Kenyan basketball, everything. Because I love this sport to death, and I'll do anything for this sport. I will make sure to give you top-notch content with my assistant, and it's just going to be fun. Buckle up. It's going to be the best experience you've had in basketball. So, yeah, man, I'm out. Peace.